The information provided on this podcast is intended to be educational and informational only and is not considered to be formal legal advice. The listener should not take or refrain from taking action based on its content. Any listener in need of legal opinion upon which to rely in decision-making should consider formally engaging an attorney to review relevant facts in detail and examine the pertinent law as it applies to those facts.
Welcome to Real Estate Milestones, where we explore fascinating topics in commercial real estate with knowledgeable industry experts. I'm your host, Ben Malik, and I'm a young real estate professional who is passionate about adding value to people's lives through the incredible power of real estate. My goal is to help you discover what the heck is going on in the industry and how you can get involved. This is Real Estate Milestones, where your future in real estate lies just around the corner. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have Josh Plave, who is the founder of Walter Main. He's an apartment investor and operator with over 1,500 units in the country. He knows a lot about retirement accounts and some cool things you could do in that space. And I know retirement is not the coolest topic. I think once you learn about what's possible with retirement accounts and how you can leverage these structures to make good returns in real estate and have great estate planning and tax preparation, that I think you'll find it as exciting as Josh and I have. But first, Josh, where are you from?
I am from Rockville, Maryland. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm from Potomac. I'm from down the street. But where did you go to high school?
I went to Wooten High School.
I don't know if I've heard of that high school, because they're not like not the most relevant. But actually, I think I jogs my memory. But yeah. We played them in the state finals of the Maryland State Finals for hockey, and pretty sure they didn't win. Pretty sure they lost pretty bad to Churchill.
It's not my business. We won when I was there, so I graduated as a senior. We won that year.
Yeah, well, I guess both get the glory of the states, but I think we know which one's better now, and I think we know it's Churchill.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. All right, cool. So yeah, back to real estate. What was your first milestone in real estate?
What was that?
What was your first milestone in real estate?
First milestone in real estate. That one, let's see. I was probably when I first got started, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had the opportunity. I was still working to figure out which sector I wanted to jump into. And I knew I didn't want to kind of like dilly-dally and go from place to, sector to sector. So I knew I wanted to get involved in multifamily eventually. But I realized that was going to take some time to actually get started. So I actually ended up doing some private money loans, was using my IRAs at the time. And yeah, I was able to loan to some flippers that I was friends with who were working up in Boston where I went to school. And it worked out pretty well. It was a fun project. Did like 2 or 3 of them at that time, and they all paid out within about a year or 2. It was good.
Wow, so that's really interesting. Out of anyone on the podcast, I don't think I've had anyone who started in debt side. That's not what people first think about when they think about real estate investments. That's really interesting that that's where you started. And I've also hadn't heard of many people starting with their IRA. So I guess, how did you learn about this possibility? And how did you decide that was the place to start?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to kind of like introduce how, I'm only 32, but I've been using IRAs and retirement accounts for about half my life. So why have I gotten involved in retirement accounts, relatively young age? So when I was 16 years old, I was working a summer job. I was working at Landon school as well in Maryland. And I had it was like a grand or 2 from that summer job. And my mother and my grandfather were both CPAs. So they were always telling me about, different ways to invest and trying to keep my mind on top of all of that. And so I ended up opening up a Roth IRA at that time. And I put all of the earnings I had from that summer into that Roth IRA and started investing from there. So I've been contributing to it ever since and growing it along the way. So it's been pretty powerful. But kind of fast forward about 10 years from then, my mother and my grandfather, who I had mentioned, they unfortunately had both passed away. And so what they did was they left me and my sisters with their retirement accounts that they had kind of been earning for their whole lives. It wasn't like a life-changing amount of money, but it was enough that I needed to make sure I was going to be a good steward of it. I was going to put it into an investment that wasn't like the coolest, sexiest thing at the time. It was something that I understood and knew well. And so when I was figuring out how to deploy them, I ended up gaining a lot of knowledge on how to use what's called self-directed IRA accounts, which we'll talk about. And once I figured all of that out, I realized that's why I ended up in private money lending. I realized I needed some more, short to medium term opportunities to kind of bridge the gap in between, me learning more about multifamily and getting involved in something that's more long-term, which, multifamily is usually 3 to like a 7-year hold. So I knew I needed something interim before I got there.
Wow. Well, that's really astute and interesting because I know that learning is obviously very important because preservation of capital is the number one key to this. Don't lose money, as Warren Buffett would say. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that I'm glad that you decided to, make some yield rather than just hold cash, which might be the first instinct, because you still have to know something about private money lending. But I guess at that point, like, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing. I trust him to give me my money back, earn a modest yield, and sounds like a good game plan.
Yeah, it went well. There was, like I said, I think one of the deals went normally, the other one bled into a second deal. But it, all worked out in the end. Got about 12% on those. That's what the interest rate was on the notes. Big fan of it. I think it's great fit for IRAs.
Awesome. So some people are worried about real estate investing because they don't want to do anything. Sounds like all you had to do was give them the money, didn't have to do very much during it, and you definitely beat that average 7% you get in the stock market with 12%. So
yeah, no, as long as you find a good operator who you trust, it's a good option.
Yeah, so just wanted to hit the point that real estate can be passive too, but we're definitely going to get into that when talking about investment accounts and whatnot. Did want to mention that I met Josh at the Multifamily Investors Conference in Charlotte in June of 2022. And yeah, we how did you figure out that we're from the same town?
I think it's usually I say I'm originally from DC, and you said the same, and
Right.
you kind of start to whittle your way down into like where you're actually from.
Awesome. Yeah. So definitely a good conversation, and I'm glad to continue it and bring some of the things that we've learned from each other to the masses. So on that note, could you just start by introducing the different types of retirement accounts and couple of the difference between that, and tell us about the distinction between self-directed IRAs? I know a lot of people familiar with retirement accounts, but self-directed aspect is not something they advertise on TV. It's lesser known. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so there's really two main types. The most well-known is probably the 401k. So that's going to be an employer-sponsored plan. Something that they're offering. If you're with an employer-sponsored plan, you can do about $27,000 of contributions annually. So it's a nice high contribution amount. And it's all tax deferred. So anything you put in doesn't get taxed while you're investing. And then you can take it out. And there's two different styles of any kind of retirement plan, both for that 401k and the IRA, which I'll talk about next. There's traditional funds. And so the way it's structured is it's pre-tax money. So before it's ever been taxed, it goes directly into a retirement account, whether it's a 401k or an IRA. You grow tax-free while you're in that account. And then when you take the funds out, those distributions are taxed at your income rate at the time. Then there's Roth money, and that's when you pay the taxes today at your tax rate for today, for this year. And then you earn the same way, you earn tax-free while it's in that retirement plan. And then when you take out the distribution at the end, it's completely tax-free, and you don't have to worry about taking taxes again a second time. So there's the 401k, it's an employer-sponsored plan. And then there's the IRA, which you can sponsor. Sorry, you don't sponsor, but no, I guess technically you're sponsoring it. It's your own individual retirement plan. And you can contribute up to, starting in 2023, it'll be $6,500. And yeah, it's a great little method for contributing, your own retirement plan. You can even roll over 401ks into IRAs. And so you can roll back and forth between these two different types of accounts typically.
Awesome. And so the self-directed aspect of that, what changes when you have the self-directed distinction? And some people might be scared with self-directed, given it's like, oh, do I have to do all the work now? But really, what does it mean?
Yeah, so it's like just a marketing term, and I think it misleads a lot of people. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's the space I'm in, so I have to call it that. But basically, a self-directed IRA is just the same thing. It's an IRA, but like if you've got an IRA at your usual bank, it's sitting at like Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, one of those types of places, and their entire brokerage house is set up to focus on equities, a lot of ETFs, mutual funds, bonds, stocks, but they don't facilitate investments in alternate asset classes. And so a self-directed IRA allows you to do that. It allows you to invest in virtually anything that you want. Whatever you think is a proper investment, your IRA can invest in that. So it just needs to be placed with a custodian that allows for those types of things. So Schwab and Fidelity, they don't allow for it, but these custodians that set up the self-directed IRAs, they actually allow for you to invest in virtually anything you want. There's when they created the IRA, there were only limitations on what you couldn't invest in. So there's life insurance policies, S corporations, and then collectibles like art, jewelry, cars, alcohol, stuff like that. Outside of that, I've heard of people purchasing racehorses, running stud operations. You can do Bitcoin, you can do real estate, plenty of other asset classes that you want just for your IRA.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And are the fees different for self-directed or not? Or is there a reason why Charles Schwab doesn't want you to have a self-directed?
Well, they don't want you to have self-directed because they can make more transactional fees and everything on those custodial accounts. But when it comes to self-directed IRAs, the cost will be a little higher. Usually you can open up an IRA at one of the larger institutions for free. There's really no, the one nice part they have is there's that ease of transferring of funds between different institutions. When it's at a custodian, there's really two types of accounts, which we could talk about. But when it's at a custodian, yeah, you're going to be incurring a small setup fee, somewhere between $100 and maybe $200 or $300. And then annually, it varies depending on the type of plan you open up. It can range from $150 to $200 flat per year. Or if you've got a really big account and you're at a place that's not doing a flat fee, that can go up to $500, $600 annually. But there's different ways to kind of keep that down, keep the fees minimal.
Awesome. So yeah, let's get into how can you invest in real estate using one of these accounts? Kind of how does the process work? Maybe you can set us up like a kind of a case study example. And I guess the second question to that would be, could you invest in property that you are owning and operating and managing yourself?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the kind of the rules around it. There's two real main rules. So there's the prohibited transactions rule. And so that dictates what you can and can't invest in. So what I like to kind of describe it as is the IRA and you should consider those two different people. Just pretend your IRA is a different person and you and that person cannot interact. They cannot invest together. So the example I like to give for this is, let's say you want to buy an Airbnb with your IRA. You can totally do that. You can't benefit from your IRA and your IRA can't benefit from you. So what I mean by that is you wouldn't be able to rent that Airbnb from your IRA because you can do one of two things. You can benefit yourself if you decided you were going to rent it for $1 a night and you're going to get really cheap living accommodations on behalf of your IRA. On the flip side, if you decide that you want to rent it out for $10,000 a night, that's a great way to bump up and get past those contribution amounts and bump up, the total value of your IRA. So that's also prohibited. So basically, you can't engage in any activity where you are directly in control of that asset and you're running it. You could buy a property and you can be the quarterback. You could be like the GC who, points out what needs to be done, but you can't swing a hammer. You can't provide sweat equity. It needs to be a property where you're completely hands off and you're not earning any kind of active income on it. It's wholly owned by your IRA.
Okay. So Wow, that's a really, really good example because you can funnel money out of it by getting cheap, because you can funnel value out of it by having cheap stays. You can also avoid taxes if you pump money into your Roth that way. Wow. Well, that's that seems genius, but I guess they caught that one. So
Yeah,
that's
they
that's
thought
pretty
about
good.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, to get a little bit more into that, like if I am, could I be a GP on a syndication? If I was a, if I, it was, if it, using my Roth, could I invest into the general partnership, or could I only be in limited partnership? And could that limited partnership be on my syndication as a GP, or does it have to be someone else's syndication?
Yeah, so if you're a general partner in a apartment complex or syndication, you can't use your retirement funds to invest in your own deal. So that's something that I run into. I have to find other operators who I can place my capital with, and then they might find me to invest their retirement funds with, and you can kind of exchange that way. But yeah, if you're earning active income, if you're a general partner and you're earning acquisition fees, asset management fees, any kind of active income, you're not allowed to invest with your retirement account. And there's also not just yourself, but the other rule is disqualified persons. And so those people, you're the first one. These are people you can't invest your IRA with. So we talked about that back and forth with the IRA. You can't do the same thing with any linear ascendant or descendant. So you can't actually invest with your parent or your grandparent, your children or your grandchildren, or your spouse. And so you need to basically think about that. Like if they bought an Airbnb with their IRA, you couldn't rent from it. So it's the same kind of system, just with different people. You can do brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, and cousins, anyone beyond that. But like, for example, my dad, he has a lot of retirement accounts and he wants to invest in my deals, but we can't use his retirement accounts to invest in my properties because that's prohibited. So
I
we
get
avoid
it.
that.
Yeah, it kind of seems like anyone who you might have a inheritance relationship with,
Yeah.
like by law. Uh, yeah, so that makes sense. Well, Leah, we can do something cool. That's my sister, so might be able to invest in each other's deals. But so yeah, I would also like to. It's interesting that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, and we kind of touched on it now. But I'm very curious about how IRAs get passed on through you know through estate planning and through wills and or however one may do it. And because like there seems like the retirement account seems like it's tied to a person. I wonder if like how the tax advantages transfer, how the what aspects of it transfers, and kind of, yeah, if you could just like touch on that aspect.
Yeah, sure. So I've been through this. What happens is you list a beneficiary on your retirement account, and when you die, the beneficiaries are honored. So it depends on the way that you've allocated the distribution or the ownership. And let's just say it's 100% to somebody. So that account then gets transferred into an inherited IRA, and from there, what ends up happening is you automatically have to start taking what are called RMDs, required minimum distributions. Usually you don't have to start taking RMDs if you're the owner of an IRA. You don't have to start taking them until you're 70 and a half years old. But once you pass and your inheritors inherit that IRA, the RMDs begin. And the new rule that actually just got passed a few years ago is that IRA has to be fully distributed within 10 years. So you can do it in even amounts over 10 years, or you can change it up, but it has to be vacated fully within 10 years and absorbed by the beneficiary.
Okay, interesting. So I know that kind of the idea behind an IRA is that we pay into it now at no tax rate so that we can grow it however much, and then at the end we distribute it. But I guess the prototypical example would be, now that we're retired, we're not earning income, so we also have a lower tax rate or a no tax rate there. However, we're a bunch of savvy, sophisticated investors. People listening to this, we're gonna, make sure we're gonna own real estate and have cash flow when we're retiring. Does that affect the fact that we have real estate cash flow? Does that affect our our tax rate from a tax perspective? And then leading into that, what strategies are there to mitigate the effects of taxes from that perspective, and just how do you think about that?
Yeah, so any distribution gets added into your AGI. So it gets added up before any deductions are taken. So if you have cash flow coming in on, let's say we're not talking about retirement accounts, and you have cash flow coming in on taxable side, but you have some deductions coming in, losses from the property, whatever it might be, all of that income, the distributions gets added to anything that comes out of your IRA or your 401k. That gets added to that total amount, added up, and then you get taxed at that rate. So that's why I honestly really like the Roth IRA at this point. We're at historically low tax rates. And so there's a very good chance that if you're earning at a higher rate later on, or if tax rates happen to go up at all, you won't have to pay taxes. It won't get added to your tax basis on the back end. So Roths are really powerful for that reason.
Cool. So we've heard of this idea of I've heard of this idea of the Roth conversion, where you can convert from a regular IRA to a Roth. There's different aspects of that, but kind of what are the rules around that? Why would someone do a Roth conversion? And let's say you have a year with a lot of losses, or you have a lot of depreciation, and your taxable income is technically zero. Could you convert to a Roth at zero tax rate?
You could. It would get added into your tax. It would become taxable. If you have losses to offset that, you can certainly do that. But yeah, I mean, a rollover from a traditional IRA or conversion from a traditional IRA into a Roth is totally doable. As you mentioned, it gets added to your taxable amount. But yeah, typically when you do that, there's one of two things happens. It either gets automatically converted on the back end by the actual custodian themselves, or some of them like to send you a check and then you have to put it into a Roth IRA. If that happens, you should be aware, like, you need to move that check within 60 days. If you hold on to it personally for more than 60 days, it's considered a full distribution and it's no longer a retirement account. But yeah, if you send it into the new institution or the same institution it came from, and it goes directly into the Roth IRA, it's still it's a non-taxable, it's taxable, but it sits within that retirement account.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, is there a quantity limit to that?
No, there's no quantity limit on the rollovers. You should be aware that because it gets added to that year's taxable amount. If you've got $500,000 in a traditional fund and you want to move it into Roth, you're adding $500,000 to your income that year. So you might want to. There are strategies behind splitting it up over different tax years. That's something you should be aware of when you're doing it. But yeah, no limit at all.
Awesome. So the one thing that comes up into a lot of conversations around retirement accounts and around investing in real estate through retirement accounts is this idea of UBIT. This it seems like this silent killer, or the silent scary thing that gives people like, oh, I want to stay away from all this stuff because of this problem. I don't know too much about it, so I would love to know what it is and why people are fearful of it, and why maybe the fear is not as bad as one should or it's not as bad as one might think.
Yeah, absolutely. This is sort of you described it well. I call it the boogeyman. It's this thing that hangs over the self-directed IRA industry that I've kind of made my mission to squash the fear. So essentially what happens, this is a tax that actually gets incurred within an IRA. So if we take a self-directed IRA and we invest it into, let's say, a multifamily deal, in multifamily, we're using leverage to acquire these properties. So I'll give you an example. If we buy a property with 75% LTV, we will be bringing in non-tax deferred dollars from a lender or a bank. So 75% of the funds to acquire the property are not coming from an IRA. And so 75% roughly that year of the income gets taxed. It's taxable, about 75% of it is. The nice part is that 75%, because it's not coming from an IRA and it's not tax deferred in any way, it can also make use of depreciation, other expenses, any kind of losses. It can make use of them at about a 75% rate as well. So that really helps to offset things. the IRAs use the trust tax table. There's two different. There's the ordinary income table and the capital gains table. The reason UBIT is considered to be this big scary monster is that the ordinary income table for trust, it goes to 37%. And so everyone says, oh my God, you're going to get taxed at 37%. And they get really scared. So when I was actually getting started, I heard all of this and I was worried and concerned. That's actually why I ended up doing private money lending, because I needed time to study this and understand it before I got started. So I ended up building a calculator. It's the first of its kind that can actually calculate what the UBIT total will look like on a multifamily investment. And so what I found was there's enough losses when you're investing in multifamily to actually offset all of your cash flow, all of your ordinary income. I've never even seen on a multifamily property, I've never seen anybody actually touch that ordinary tax table at all. It stays at a 0% rate because you have the losses to offset. They get carried forward into the following years, and you typically are going to be seeing taxes on the capital gains. And so you're looking at like the time of a sale or a really big refinance. That's when you'll see some UBIT come up. Overall, when I've ran hundreds and hundreds of deals through that calculator, I've seen that it roughly results in about a 12% tax rate. But the nice thing is, at that point, I've leveraged up my IRA. I've gone from, in the stock market, maybe 7% returns. I've gone to a multifamily 18 to 20% annualized returns after sale. And if I have to pay a 12% tax on that, it maybe drops down to 15 or 16%. So it's nothing that's fully detrimental to your investment. It allows you to actually leverage up. And I don't mind seeing that tax as a result, as long as you plan for it ahead of time and mitigate it.
Yeah, and it's lower than your income tax and your capital gains tax if you were to do it out of IRA as well. And whether you're investing in stocks or real estate. So yeah, awesome. Well, I guess the last question I have before we get to the lightning round is, I mean, it's awesome that you have these resources as a GP on multifamily deals, and definitely awesome that you know a lot about this stuff, because this is there's probably a lot of untapped potential, because most people's investments and wealth are stored in IRAs, or a lot of that, if not the primary residence. So the fact that you can help this process is really powerful. But I kind of want to know, as a GP, how do you use your expertise and your comfort with these ideas to facilitate the experience for investors?
Yeah, it's been an interesting process, because I come at it from, I'm also a limited partner. I understand what it's like to operate with these types of accounts. And there are some, just kind of because you're moving between different institutions and you're dealing with a good amount of paperwork, there's some, knowledge that you need. So I like to help my investors out, having gone through this hundreds of times, understanding, the better ways to execute when they need to liquidate funds, to move them between different banks, and just kind of navigating that space, navigating the taxation space, and understanding how they can, when you report your tax, you use a form called a 990T. So understanding how that's all used as well. Just trying to optimize them. And then I use that UBIT calculator that I had mentioned. I use that to go out and find deals that minimize UBIT. So I'm looking for UBIT optimized deals where you're going to be hopefully below that 12% average that we were talking about. And we're just looking to structure properties in certain ways that allow you to kind of best use your retirement dollars and leverage up your returns.
Awesome. Well, that's super powerful. And yeah, definitely there's a need in the market for people who are optimizing for, I honestly, it's probably a huge need in the market, given that a lot of people's wealth is in IRA. So it's, I'm glad to hear that you're optimizing for people's maximum retirement enjoyment.
Yeah, there's $6 trillion in retirement accounts. So it's a big corner of the finance world.
Yeah, definitely. Well, great. Ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what superpower would you want if you could have any superpower?
Superpower. I'll just go with focus. It could really help me. Yeah, I have a bit of an ADHD, so I would not mind the ability to really lock in on one topic, but there's different ways around it. But yeah, it'd help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. So what's your favorite book, or what's the one that helps you the most, or has helped you the most?
Yeah, so I read this book called Blue Ocean Strategy. Don't know if you've heard of this. And what it does, I think it's Blue Ocean. I think it's strategy. The focus of it is essentially to find a corner of the market that is not even realized, doesn't exist. So the way that they kind of describe it is, if you're opening up another toothpaste brand, that you're not looking for new customers. You're targeting the exact same. It's a red market. Everybody is already targeting. There's a lot of blood in the water. Everyone's targeting the same clients. And so what a blue market would be is something like Cirque du Soleil. So they're bringing in people from the circus market, from the ballet, from the opera markets, people who are entertained by these different types of entertainment, and they all come together in a new customer base. And so it's a whole book strategizing on how you can find a customer base that is completely untapped and not at all arranged in one coherent product already.
Yeah, it's a very powerful idea, and definitely hear a lot of the most successful people. That's really what they did. Create a new solution for an existing need, and that's powerful. So, what motivates you to continue every day?
My daughter. I got a 1.5-year-old, and I mean, I'm doing everything I'm putting together here so that I can work from home, so I can be there, watch her grow, and I have the opportunity to take time off and do anything that we want to do with the family. Basically, I'm doing all of this for time freedom, the ability to choose what I want to do, when I want to work, when I want to relax, and spend time and focus with my family.
Awesome. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to follow in your footsteps?
I think that the main thing that has helped me on my path was when I ended up focusing on one specific topic. When I first started and I was trying to figure out, hey, am I going to wholesale? Am I going to flip? I'm going to do all these different things. And when I finally honed in on multifamily and I focused on just one topic within it, that's when I really found a lot more expertise and drive within it. I could master it and get to 100% knowledge in one topic. And once I got there, I can move on to a second topic and try to master that as well. Instead of doing 5 different things at a 70% level, just focusing on one thing at a time has really helped me.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's hard to implement as a college student when you got all these different things to balance. But yeah, I see the power in it. And I guess even when I say real estate, that's not even narrow enough. Real estate is so broad, and there's so many opportunities, but it's great to have this base of knowledge that I can then, pick to focus on. So I really like that. So yeah, that's a powerful idea though. Well, so I put you on the spot. I'm gonna give you a chance for revenge. So what's one question you have for me?
What I'd say, what asset class do you want to be in 5 years from now? And I hate these 5-year questions, but like, what's the next asset class for you after the one you start with?
Interesting. I mean, I don't even know how to pick one. So I guess I'll take this. I'll start with this. I love multifamily because there's increasing population, not increasing globe size, and everyone loves roofs over their heads. I don't know anyone who loves sleeping outside on the ground. So given that, and given that I'm 21 and I have a long investment horizon, I think multifamily is a great place to be. Very strong fundamentals, and always going to be a need, and I think it's going to hedge inflation in the long run, and it's going to be a great source of cash flow. But if I'm going to be opportunistic as possible, I would have to say senior living. Just given the next 5 years, how many people are aging into the need of this senior living? There's the podcast last week actually was all about this. So anyone who's listened to both of these will know, but there's just so much demand from baby boomers growing older, and really hard to create new supply. And even if the stat from last week was, even if we create 40 to 50,000 units a year, that we'd be by 2030, we'll still be 1.5 million units short of senior housing for the demand that is expected, and we all see coming, silver tsunami. So that's where I'd have to say.
Yeah, that's my same answer. My story is multifamily, senior housing, triple net leasing at the end. I think it's a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, that's how I want my life to like. That's how I want like my estate planning or my journey through real estate to go. Eventually I want to 1031 into triple net lease and not think about it ever again. Not ever again. I'm thinking about it all the time because I love it. But let just de-risk and de-effort into a bond wrapped in real estate, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I guess my next episode, I'm going to have someone come on to talk about triple net lease. So great. Well, Josh, thanks for coming on the show. I'll admit, I don't hate Wooten. A lot of my best friends go to Wooten, and it is a great school and great people. And we live just down the road, and I love all of my Potomac, Rockville, Bethesda family. So glad we got to connect, and great to have another native on the show.
Yeah, it's good to meet you and good to talk with you about this topic. I love it.
Awesome. Well, what can people find out more if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, if you want access to that UBIT calculator I was talking about, you can run anything that you're currently doing with it, at least if it's multifamily or of the same style in terms of a value add proposition. You can download it at ubitcalc.com, and there you can find some information about us and what we do, and run that calculator for yourself.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan, and that's definitely a powerful tool. So I recommend checking it out if you're ever investing with a retirement account. Great. Well, Josh, appreciate you having me on the show. Coming on the show today, learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone listening learned a lot. There's a lot to unpack, but appreciate you and keep making milestones. Before you go, I just wanted to say thanks again for tuning in to another awesome episode of Real Estate Milestones. If you've been enjoying the show and you'd like to offer your support, please leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's the best way to increase the show's visibility and help the message get out to a greater audience. I really appreciate your time and support, and keep making milestones.